The South Cambridgeshire District Council has the lowest office occupancy of any council in the country. That was research we did.
What?
So that's the
so
point.
What? No, hang on a minute. So what? Because you're mixing a couple of things up here. Working from home has been a huge shift, not just here in the UK, but worldwide as a result of lockdown. So who cares about that?
You're raising the point of flexible working, which I'm saying is fine.
But this is flexible working, offering people the chance to work 4 days a week and to compress 100% of their work into 80% of time whilst being paid 100%, which is, I've taken this off the website, that is a version of flexible working.
I would strongly contest whether that's flexible working. That's basically saying to every single staff member, regardless of how much work you have to do, you now have to do it in 4 days.
It is not saying you have to do it. Let's just get some facts straight. They are offering that to their staff, in which case it is a version of flexible working, Elliot. Come on.
Every single staff member in South Cambridgeshire District Council is now working a 4-day week, including the Chief Executive. Some of these people were on well over £100,000, and they've now seen essentially a pay rise of about 20% as a result of this reduction in hours.
That is not true if they are still delivering the same amount of work. That's not a pay rise, is it?
Sure, except the evidence on whether or not they're fulfilling the same amount of work is pretty poor. For example, the amount of time it takes for them to pick up the phone has doubled. Their responsiveness to emergency repairs has deteriorated. Their responsiveness to housing benefit or council tax claims has deteriorated. And ironically, and
may I
ask
where that evidence has come from?
The South Cambridgeshire District Council KPIs, if you look at the first 2 quarters of the trial, and in the latest quarter of the trial, their staff turnover has actually gone up. So, i.e., more people left the council in the latest quarter of the trial than the previous quarter. So even this claim that it's necessary to keep staff is not bearing fruit.
Under what circumstances do you think it is possible to work a 4-day week?
I think particularly if you're the sort of organisation where you don't need to be open 7 days a week, where people don't rely on you 7 days a week.
Just to be clear again, the council does not close on any working day of the week. Just answer the question if you would.
Well, listen, as I said, we don't take a judgment on what the private sector does or doesn't do. That's not.
So you're saying the only way a 4-day week would work is in the private sector. Is that clear? Is that right? Have I understood
I'm saying if the private sector is able to demonstrate through an absolute overwhelming mass of evidence to the point where the whole private sector is shifting to a 4-day week, then that's a conversation we can start having about the public sector. But at the moment, South Cambridgeshire District Council, essentially what they've decided to do is
Why would you base a conversation about the public sector on what happens in the private sector? The reason we have a public sector is because, by and large, it provides services that the private sector won't.
Sure, that's correct.
So why are you making the comparison?
Because it's healthy to look at the private sector, see what works.
But you're trying to compare apples and pears, aren't you, Elliot?
Well, and that's the entire point with why the 4-day week looks like, and we believe won't work in the public sector, because the public sector is a fundamentally different part of the country to the private sector. That doesn't mean we shouldn't look at the private sector to see if there are lessons that can be learned. But at the moment, we've only seen a very, very limited trial of private sector companies, which showed that for a very small quota, it did work, but for some of them, it didn't. Some of them have now transitioned back to a 5-day week. And I don't think it's the case that we should be experimenting with something as important as a local council.